The village of Kijiji lay nestled in the lush valleys of the Kilindi region, a place where the sun rose slowly over the thick canopy of ancient trees, and the morning mist rolled gently over the rooftops of mud brick huts. In this village, Amina was a name on everyone's lips, not because she was the richest or the most outspoken, but because of her hair. Always immaculate, always mesmerizing. The women whispered, the men stared, and the children followed her as she walked to the market or attended the community school. Her hairstyles were like nothing anyone had ever seen. They defied gravity, wove intricate patterns, and seemed to change almost daily. And yet, no one ever saw Amina visit the village hairstylist. Her hair was a mystery, an enigma that confounded the entire village. She was admired by some, envied by others, but all were captivated. Amina moved with a quiet grace, her dark eyes always focused ahead, her smile soft and knowing, as if she held a secret that no one else could understand. The village folk began to make up their own stories about her. Some said she was blessed by the spirits. Others murmured that she had a pact with the unseen forces that roamed the forests at night. But Amina never spoke of it, and no one dared ask. But before we dive deeper into this tale, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. As the sun dipped behind the hills, the village would prepare for the night, and Amina would quietly slip away, unnoticed, from her family's hut. She would walk with light steps towards the sacred baobab tree on the edge of the village, its massive trunk casting long shadows in the moonlight. This was where the real mystery began, where Amina's secret would take shape under the cold, pale glow of the moon. But not everyone was content to accept the mystery. Safi, Amina's cousin and closest friend, couldn't help but wonder. She knew Amina better than anyone else, and yet, even she had no explanation for the flawless hairstyles. She had asked Amina before in casual conversation, but Amina had always laughed it off, deflecting with a joke or a change of subject. Safi felt something stir inside her, a need to know, to uncover the truth behind her cousin's peculiar beauty. And so one night Safi decided to follow Amina. That night, Safi waited in the shadows outside Amina's hut, her heart pounding with anticipation. She watched as Amina slipped out silently, her figure blending into the darkness. Safi kept a safe distance, moving quietly, careful not to make a sound. She followed her cousin through the narrow paths of the village, past the sleeping huts, and toward the great baobab tree that loomed on the horizon like a giant sentinel. The tree was a sacred place, known to all in the village, a place of power and mystery where no one ventured at night. Safi hid behind a cluster of bushes, her breath shallow, as Amina approached the tree. The moon was high, casting an eerie silver light over everything. She watched as Amina sat at the base of the tree, her back straight, her hands moving with an odd precision. And then, to Safi's utter disbelief, Amina did something impossible. She reached up, placed her hands at the base of her neck, and removed her head. Safi's eyes widened, her heart racing with terror and fascination. Amina placed her head gently on her lap, and with nimble fingers she began to braid her own hair, her body moving fluidly, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. The strands of her hair seemed to glow in the moonlight, weaving themselves into patterns more intricate than anything Safi had ever seen. The air around the tree felt charged, alive with an energy that made the hairs on the back of Safi's neck stand on end. Safi wanted to scream, to run, but her feet were rooted to the ground, her eyes locked on the surreal sight before her. She watched, transfixed, as Amina's fingers worked with supernatural skill, twisting and turning the hair into an exquisite style that seemed almost too perfect to be real. Finally, Amina placed her head back onto her neck, as seamlessly as if it had never been removed. She stood up, brushed the dust from her clothes, and glanced around as if sensing something. Safi ducked lower, her breath caught in her throat. Amina turned back toward the tree, whispered something that Safi couldn't hear, and then walked back toward the village, her steps light and deliberate. Safi remained hidden until she was sure Amina was gone, her mind racing with questions. What had she just seen? How could any of it be possible? Fear and confusion twisted inside her, but one thing was certain: she needed answers. The morning light filtered through the cracks in Safi's hut, but she had barely slept. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind, each moment as vivid as if she were still there, hidden in the shadows, watching the unthinkable unfold. Her hands trembled as she prepared tea, the the steam rising in delicate tendrils. She knew she needed to speak to Amina, to confront her cousin about what she had witnessed. But how could she even begin to describe the impossible? She found Amina near the well, fetching water with her usual calm demeanor. Her hair, of course, styled in a breathtaking new design that seemed to defy both time and gravity. Safi felt a jolt of unease. Her eyes met Amina's, and for a moment she felt a flicker of something. Fear, maybe, or a hidden challenge. Summoning her courage, she approached. "Amina," Safi began, her voice strained, "we need to talk." Amina's smile was as serene as always. "Of course, Safi. What is it?" Safi hesitated, feeling the weight of what she was about to say. "Last night, I followed you." For the first time, Amina's expression changed. A shadow of concern crossed her face, quickly masked by her usual calm. "You did what?" "I saw you at the baobab tree," Safi blurted, her voice trembling. "I saw everything." Amina's eyes darkened. She glanced around, making sure no one was within earshot, then motioned for Safi to follow her to a more secluded spot. They moved to the back of a small grove of trees, away from prying eyes and curious ears. Amina turned to face Safi, her expression now serious. "What you saw," Amina began slowly, "is something you must keep secret, Safi." "But how?" Safi's voice was a mix of fear and desperation. "How is it possible, Amina? I saw you. You took off your own head. How can that be real?" Amina sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "It is real, Safi, but it is also a secret that has been in our family for generations. A ritual passed down from mother to daughter, kept hidden from the eyes of the village. If anyone knew, they wouldn't understand." Safi felt a chill run down her spine. "But why? Why do you do it? Why can't you just be like everyone else?" Amina's gaze softened. "Because this is who I am, Safi. It's a part of me, a gift and a burden. My hair, it has a power, one that I must control through the ritual. It binds me to something greater, something ancient. I do not fully understand it myself, but I know that it must remain a secret." Safi stared at her cousin, torn between disbelief and a deep-seated fear. "What happens if people find out?" Amina's face grew stern. "They won't, and they mustn't. You must promise me, Safi, that you will keep this to yourself. No one would believe you anyway, but if they did, it could bring trouble to all of us." Safi nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the secret settle over her like a heavy cloak. She wasn't sure if she believed Amina or even understood everything her cousin was saying, but she knew one thing. This was no ordinary secret. And she wasn't sure if she could keep it. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night clung to Safi like a shadow. She avoided Amina whenever she could, her mind swirling with questions and fears. The village noticed. The change in Safi was subtle at first, but soon everyone could see it. She had become quieter, more withdrawn. The cheerful girl who once laughed with her friends at the market now walked with her head down, her eyes darting nervously. Rumors began to spread. Whispers that something was wrong between the two cousins reached the ears of the elders. Amina, for her part, remained calm and poised, her hair continuing to defy reason, always perfect, always changing. But she could feel the weight of Safi's unease, and she knew it was only a matter of time before others began to ask questions. One evening, as Amina was returning from the river, she found herself face to face with one of the village elders, Mama Rehema, whose sharp eyes seemed to pierce through her. "Amina," she said in a tone that brooked no argument, "what is happening with you and Safi? The village is beginning to talk." Amina smiled politely, though her heart beat a little faster. "Oh, Mama Rehema, it is nothing. Just a small misunderstanding. You know how cousins can be." Mama Rehema frowned, not entirely convinced. "I know, child, but I also know that where there is smoke, there is fire. Safi has been acting strangely, and I do not like the look of fear in her eyes. If there is something you are hiding..." Amina's smile faltered just for a moment. "I assure you, Mama, it is nothing that concerns the village. Safi will be fine." But as she walked away, Amina felt a growing sense of dread. Safi's silence was becoming more dangerous with each passing day. She would need to talk to her cousin again, and soon, before things spiraled further out of control. Meanwhile, Safi, feeling the weight of her secret, struggled with what she knew. The villagers' curious glances felt like 1,000 questions pressing down on her, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep her promise to Amina. She found herself avoiding people, staying indoors, her mind a whirl of doubts and fears. She knew that something had to give, and deep down, she knew it would happen soon. The air was thick with tension when Amina finally decided to confront Safi again. She found her cousin sitting alone by the riverbank, her knees pulled to her chest, staring into the water. Safi's face was drawn, her eyes dark with sleeplessness. Amina approached cautiously, her heart heavy with the weight of their shared secret. "Safi," Amina called softly. Safi glanced up, her expression wary. "I know this has been hard for you, but we need to talk. I can't let this continue." Safi sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know if I can do this, Amina. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything is normal." Amina sat beside her, her voice low and earnest. "I understand, Safi, but you need to know that there is more to this than you realize. It's not just about me and my hair. There are things I haven't told you." Safi turned to her, curiosity mixed with fear. "What things?" Amina took a deep breath. "The ritual. It's not just for show or vanity. It gives me certain abilities, powers that I don't fully understand, but they are tied to our family, to the women who came before us. The baobab tree, it holds some kind of ancient energy. It's like a conduit between our world and something older. My hair is connected to that power. If I don't perform the ritual, things could go wrong. Terribly wrong." Safi's eyes widened. "What do you mean? What kind of powers?" Amina hesitated, then continued. "I can see things sometimes, Safi. Things that haven't happened yet or things happening far away. I can sense when someone is in danger or when something bad is coming. But these powers, they come with a cost. The ritual keeps them in balance, keeps me in balance. Without it, I don't know what would happen." Safi shivered, feeling a chill despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. But why keep it a secret? Why not tell everyone and use these powers to help? Amina shook her head. "Because people fear what they don't understand. If they knew, they would think it's witchcraft or worse. They might even drive me out of the village, or worse, try to harm me. And you would be caught in the middle. That's why it must remain a secret, Safi. For both our sakes." Safi was silent for a long moment, absorbing everything Amina had said. The fear she had felt before was still there, but now it was mixed with a strange sense of wonder. I think I understand," she murmured finally. "But this is a lot, Amina. I don't know how to carry this on my own." Amina placed a comforting hand on Safi's shoulder. "You're not alone, Safi. I'm with you. And I promise I will explain more when the time is right. But for now, we must keep this between us." Safi nodded, feeling a fragile bond rekindle between them. She wasn't sure if she could handle all of this, but she knew one thing. She trusted Amina. And for now, that would have to be enough. As days went by, Safi found herself increasingly drawn to the stories and whispers that flowed through the village like an undercurrent. She decided that if she were to truly understand what Amina had told her, she needed to dig deeper into the past, into the history that was woven into the very fabric of their village. She began to seek out the elders, those who had been around long enough to remember the old stories, the tales of the baobab tree and the powers it was rumored to possess. One afternoon, she approached Mama Rahema, who was known to have the longest memory in the village. Safi asked, with innocent curiosity, about the history of the tree, about the strange occurrences in the village's past. Mama Rahema, sensing something behind Safi's questions, hesitated, then spoke slowly. "The baobab is ancient, older than any of us. It's said that in times long past, it was the site of rituals and ceremonies, things we no longer speak of. It holds a power that many fear, a power connected to the spirits of the land, to the old ways that are best left forgotten," Mama Rahema whispered, her eyes narrowing. "Why do you ask, child? What interest do you have in such things?" Safi shrugged, trying to appear casual. "I've just heard stories, that's all. I wanted to understand more." Mama Rahima nodded slowly but kept her gaze fixed on Safi. "Be careful with such curiosity, child. The past has a way of creeping into the present if you are not cautious. Some things are best left alone." Safi thanked the elder and walked away, her heart racing. She knew she was treading dangerous ground, but she also felt a strange sense of exhilaration. She felt closer to understanding Amina's secret, to understanding the hidden world that seemed to lurk beneath the surface of her quiet village. But her questions did not go unnoticed. The other elders began to whisper among themselves, sensing that something was stirring. They had seen Safi's anxious demeanor, her whispered conversations with Amina, and now her sudden interest in the old stories. It wouldn't be long before they started to piece things together. Amina felt the shift, the tension growing around them. She knew that time was running out and she would have to act quickly. She could feel the village's eyes on her, their curiosity growing into something more pointed, more suspicious. And Safi, in her innocence, was drawing more attention than she realized. Amina decided that the only way to protect both herself and her cousin was to confront the elders directly. She would have to explain herself, or at least part of the truth, to prevent things from spiraling further. But she knew it wouldn't be easy. The elders were wise and cautious, and they would need more than words to be convinced. As night fell, Amina prepared herself for what was to come. She glanced at the baobab tree, its shadow long and imposing against the darkening sky, and felt a sense of resolve settle over her. Tomorrow, she would face the elders, and she would do whatever it took to protect her secret and her cousin. The choice had been made. Now, all that remained was to see it through. The following day dawned heavy with anticipation. Amina could feel the air buzzing with tension as she made her way to the village square, where the elders often gathered to discuss matters of importance. The village was already stirring with whispers, the news that Amina had called for a meeting with the elders spreading quickly. The villagers gathered in small groups, eyes following her every step. Mama Rehema and the other elders sat beneath the large canopy that provided shade from the sun. They watched Amina approach with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Amina took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew she needed to strike the right balance, to share enough to quell their suspicions without revealing too much. Mama Rehema, respected elders, Amina began, her voice clear and confident, though her heart pounded in her chest. I have called this meeting because I feel that there are questions in the village. Questions about myself and Safi. I wish to put these doubts to rest. Mama Rehema narrowed her eyes. Indeed, there has been much talk, Amina. And Safi, she has been asking strange questions, speaking of things best left in the past. What do you have to say for yourself? Amina nodded, choosing her words carefully. It is true that Safi and I have been speaking of things that concern our family. There are traditions and rituals passed down through generations, things that connect us to the spirit of the land, to the baobab that has stood as a sentinel for centuries. The crowd murmured and the elders exchanged glances. Mama Rehema leaned forward. And what of these rituals? Why are they secret? What is it that you hide? Amina took a deep breath. I do not hide anything, Mama Rehema. The rituals are a way to honor our ancestors, to keep the balance with the spirits of this land. It is a family tradition, one that has always been kept within. I have never meant to deceive anyone. But these traditions, they have their power, and power can be misunderstood. A low murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Amina saw a flicker of doubt cross the elders' faces. She seized the moment. If you wish, I can show you what I do, Amina continued, her voice steady. Not everything, but enough to understand that it is no harm to the village, that it is a way of respecting the old ways, the ways of our ancestors. Mama Rehema's eyes sharpened. And why should we believe you, child? Why should we trust that what you are doing is not inviting danger to us all? Amina knew this was her moment. She closed her eyes, focusing on the energy around her, the power she felt pulsing through her veins during the ritual. She extended her hands, palms open, and whispered a few words under her breath. The air around her seemed to shimmer. A light breeze stirred from nowhere, rustling the leaves above their heads. The villagers gasped, some taking a step back. Amina opened her eyes and saw the shock and awe in their faces. This is a part of the gift I've been given, something that comes from the old ways. It is not meant to harm, but to protect. I can sense when danger is near, when someone in the village needs help. This is why I have kept it secret, to avoid fear, to avoid misunderstanding. Mama Rehema stared at her for a long moment, her face unreadable. Finally, she nodded slowly. Perhaps there is truth in your words, Amina. But know this, if you use this power for harm, or if any ill fortune comes to us, we will hold you responsible. Amina bowed her head. I understand, Mama Rehema. I only wish for peace and to serve the village as best I can. The elders exchanged glances, then nodded in agreement. The crowd murmured with a mix of relief and curiosity, the tension slowly dissipating. Amina felt a wave of relief wash over her, though she knew the danger wasn't entirely past. For now, she had bought herself time. As the crowd began to disperse, Safi hurried over to Amina's side. You did it, she whispered, her voice filled with a mix of fear and admiration. But they're still watching us. Amina nodded, her expression serious. I know, but at least now they will hesitate before acting. We have a little more time to figure out what to do next. Over the next few days, the village returned to a semblance of normalcy. The whispers about Amina and her strange powers gradually subsided, though they never entirely disappeared. Some villagers still watched her with wary eyes, but others seemed to soften, curious about the newfound abilities that Amina had demonstrated. Amina continued her daily routines, greeting everyone with the same calm smile, her hair styled in ever-changing, mesmerizing patterns. The elders, too, appeared to accept the explanation, at least on the surface. But Amina knew they remained cautious, and she sensed that they would be watching her closely, waiting for any sign that might suggest she was a threat. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village prepared for the night, Safi approached Amina at her hut. The elders still don't fully trust you, she murmured. They think you might be hiding something more. Amina nodded. I expected as much. But for now, we have calmed their fears. That gives us time. Safi hesitated, then spoke, her voice low. What if we could find a way to show them that your powers could help the village? If they saw the benefits, maybe they would be less afraid. Amina considered this for a moment, then smiled. You may be right, Safi, but we must be careful. The elders are set in their ways, and it won't be easy to change their minds. That night, Amina decided to perform the ritual with greater purpose. She needed to see beyond the immediate to find a way to prove her powers could be a boon and not a curse. As the moon rose high in the sky, she made her way to the baobab tree, feeling the familiar energy pulse through her as she began the ritual. Her fingers moved with practiced ease, her mind reaching out into the night, searching for something, anything, that could help her and Safi find a path forward. She closed her eyes and saw flashes, glimpses of a storm approaching, of livestock caught in the flooding waters of the river. Her eyes flew open and she knew what needed to be done. She rushed back to the village and found Safi. A storm is coming, she whispered urgently. We need to warn the village and move the livestock to higher ground. Safi's eyes widened, but she nodded, trusting her cousin's instincts. Together they ran to the village square, raising the alarm. The elders were skeptical at first, but Amina spoke with such conviction that they finally agreed to move the livestock. Hours later, the storm hit with a fury, bringing torrential rain that caused the river to swell and flood the lower grounds. Thanks to Amina's warning, the livestock were safe, and the villagers were spared a great loss. As the rain eased, the villagers gathered, their expressions a mix of awe and gratitude. Mama Rahima approached Amina, her expression softened. Perhaps your powers do have a place here, child, she admitted. But we will still be watching. Amina nodded. That is all I ask, Mama Rahima. A chance to prove myself. As the villagers dispersed, Safi turned to Amina with a smile. You did it, Amina. You've shown them your power can be used for good. Amina smiled back, a flicker of hope in her eyes. It's a start, Safi, but there's still much to do. And as the storm clouds slowly cleared, Amina knew that while the immediate danger had passed, the journey to acceptance had only just begun. In the days following the storm, the village of Kijiji began to look at Amina with new eyes. The fear that had once surrounded her was now tempered with curiosity and a cautious respect. The livestock had been saved, and no one could deny that Amina's warning had prevented a great loss. The elders still watched her carefully, but there was a shift, a softening in their gaze that suggested they were beginning to reconsider their stance. Amina continued her daily routines, but now, instead of hiding, she walked through the village with a quiet confidence, aware of the stares but no longer burdened by them. She knew she had earned herself a fragile acceptance, but also that it was conditional, dependent on her continued restraint and goodwill. She kept her powers in check, using them subtly, only when truly necessary, and always with the well-being of the village in mind. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Amina sat by the riverbank, reflecting on all that had happened. Safi joined her, her face bright with the relief that had settled over them in recent days. You've done it, Amina, Safi said softly. You've shown them that your gift isn't something to be feared, but something that can protect and help us all. Amina nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. Maybe, she replied. but there is still much they do not know, and perhaps that is for the best. The elders may be starting to accept me, but trust is something that takes time to build. Safi sat down beside her, gazing out at the river. "I've been thinking," she began, "about the baobab, about everything you told me. Do you think there is more to discover, more to understand about the power it holds?" Amina turned to her cousin, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I believe so. The baobab has stood for centuries, and our family's connection to it is deeper than we may ever know. There are secrets there, stories buried in its roots. I feel them sometimes like whispers in the wind." Safi's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Maybe we could learn more together. There might be more ways your gift can help the village, ways that even the elders have forgotten." Amina considered this, her smile growing. "Yes, perhaps. But we must tread carefully, Safi. There are still those who would see our curiosity as a threat, who might believe we are meddling with things best left alone." Safi nodded. "I understand. But I also know that if anyone can uncover those secrets, it's you, Amina. You've already done so much. Imagine what more we could discover, what more good we could do." Amina felt a surge of hope and purpose. She had been so focused on maintaining her secret, on surviving, that she had not considered the possibilities that lay beyond. Perhaps there was more she could do, more she could learn, not just for herself, but for everyone in the village. She had always felt a deep connection to the baobab, a pull she could not fully explain. Maybe it was time to explore that connection further. As they sat together by the river, the last rays of sunlight fading, Amina felt a calm resolve settle over her. The future was uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. She had faced the unknown before and emerged stronger. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same quiet strength, with Safi by her side. The village of Kijiji had always been a place of mystery, of stories whispered under the night sky, and Amina knew that her own story was just beginning. There were still many questions to be answered, many secrets to uncover, but for now she was content to take things one day at a time, to let the mysteries reveal themselves in their own time. As the moon rose high above the baobab tree, casting its silver light across the village, Amina felt a sense of peace she had not known in a long time. She did not know what the future held, but she knew that whatever it was, she was ready to face it. With her cousin beside her and the spirit of the baobab watching over them, she felt a quiet confidence, a certainty that she was on the right path. And as the wind whispered through the leaves of the ancient tree, Amina knew that her story was far from over. There were still many chapters to be written, many adventures to be had, and she was ready for whatever came next. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to turn on notifications so you won't miss the next exciting chapter.